It's fascinating to watch. Some teachers seem to just effortlessly weave new digital tools into their lessons.
Yeah.
Interactive whiteboards,
Mm.
online quizzes, collaborative docs, making it look easy, exciting.
Yeah, totally.
Others, well, they stick to what then they know, maybe the old overhead projector or just the traditional textbook.
Hmm.
It kind of begs the question, right? What is it that actually makes anyone, really decide to adopt and actually use a new piece of technology?
It's a complex mix, absolutely. It's rarely just about the features of the technology itself. There's a whole layer of, human factors involved.
And that's precisely what we're tackling today. We're going to take a deep dive into something called technology acceptance models.
TAM, yeah.
These are frameworks designed to help us understand that why behind tech adoption. And we're specifically applying this lens to a fascinating group, teachers integrating digital media and information communication technologies, ICTs, into their classrooms.
Right. And for this deep dive, we've been looking at a stack of material. We've got some helpful YouTube explainers that lay out the foundational ideas of these models.
The basics?
Yeah, the basics. And then a really insightful academic study that took these concepts and applied them directly to actual high school teachers, surveying them to see what was really influencing their technology use.
Our mission here is to pull out the absolute most important nuggets from these sources.
Yeah.
We want to understand the key drivers that go beyond just the tech spec sheet and really get to the heart of why teachers, specifically, decide to say yes to digital tools or, why they might hesitate.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea first.
Okay.
At its heart, the Technology Acceptance Model, or TAM, is a theoretical framework. It was developed to help predict and explain why people choose to use or not use technology, particularly in a work or organizational setting.
Right. The model basically maps out a journey to what it calls actual use, which is, of course, the ultimate goal for anyone introducing new tech. Before you get to actually using it, the model suggests you first form a behavioral intention to use it.
Yeah.
You decide you intend to use it. And that intention is heavily shaped by your attitude towards the technology.
Exactly. So the big mystery TAM tries to unravel is what shapes that initial attitude.
Yeah.
And the foundational TAM points to two really powerful forces: perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use.
Perceived usefulness.
Yeah.
That's pretty intuitive, right? Is asking, do I believe this technology is going to help me do my job better?
Yeah.
Will it make tasks easier, faster, or more effective? For a teacher, that might be, will this online tool help me grade papers quicker? Will it make my lesson more engaging? Will it help students understand a difficult concept? If it doesn't feel useful for their goals, the attitude probably won't be positive.
And perceived ease of use is its critical partner. This is all about how much effort do I think it will take to learn and use this technology. Is the interface clunky? Is it hard to log in? Are there too many steps? If you perceive it as difficult or frustrating to figure out, that's a major barrier, regardless of how potentially useful it might be.
And this is where a crucial point from our sources comes in. It's all about perception, isn't it?
Totally.
It's not about whether the tech is objectively useful or easy, but whether you believe it is.
That's the key.
And that belief can look totally different depending on who's looking at it. Your own past experiences with tech, maybe even your age or gender, can color those perceptions.
Absolutely. Think about someone who's, struggled with computers their whole life versus someone who grew up with smartphones. Their starting point for perceiving ease of use is totally different.
Good point.
And beyond those core perceptions, other factors influence that path to actual use. There's social norms or social influence. Are your colleagues using this tech? Is your principal pushing for it? Do the students expect it?
And if the technology is mandatory, say, the school requires everyone to use the specific learning management system.
Oh, yeah.
That social influence basically gets cranked up to maximum power. You use it because you have to.
Yeah.
And that shapes everything.
Right. And finally, there are facilitating conditions. These are the practical realities. Do you have the necessary equipment? Is there reliable internet access? Do you get training? Is there technical support available when something goes wrong?
The practical stuff.
Yeah, these things act as crucial enablers or roadblocks after you've decided you intend to use the tech.
So you might think the tech is super useful and easy. Your peers are using it. But if the computers are broken or you can't access the network,
You're stuck.
you're still not going to use it in practice. It makes perfect sense.
Precisely. And one of our sources mentioned something specific to education that's worth highlighting: educational compatibility. This is a bit different from just usefulness.
Okay.
Usefulness is, does the tool do the job? educational compatibility is, does the tool fit with my personal style of teaching or learning?
Ah, I see. So a collaborative online document might be objectively useful for group work, but if a teacher's core philosophy is like individual written assignments and quiet study,
Mm.
it might feel incompatible with their preferred methodology, even if they acknowledge it could be useful in another context.
Exactly. It's a perceived fit with your pedagogy, your way of being a teacher.
Okay, so that gives us the general recipe for tech acceptance. Perceptions of usefulness and ease, plus social pressure and practical support, paving the way for actual use. But let's zoom in on teachers. Bringing digital tools into a classroom feels like a unique challenge, doesn't it?
It really does. One of our sources points out something we all intuitively know. Young people today often grow up steeped in digital media from a very young age.
Right, digital natives.
Exactly. Their comfort level and speed in picking up new tech can sometimes far exceed that of the adults teaching them.
Yeah, there's that idea of the digital disconnect that one study highlighted even back in 2002. Think about that, 2002.
Ancient history in tech terms?
Right. Students already relied on the internet for schoolwork and were basically pleading for better integration, access, and teacher training. One student quoted in that source even felt their textbooks were a laughable supplement compared to the internet.
Wow.
That student perspective, from over 2 decades ago, is really telling about the gap schools have been trying to bridge.
And historically, the introduction of any new media into society, whether it was radio, television, and now digital technology, often comes with anxiety,
Sure.
especially concerning its potential effects on young people. Research tends to start by looking for negative impacts and then shifts over time to examining how people actually adopt and use these tools effectively.
And despite all this potential and the student demand, widespread, deep adoption by teachers isn't a given. You still encounter teachers who identify as technology novices, see classrooms with underutilized equipment, and find views on the relevance of new media varying wildly.
Which brings us to that academic study we looked at. Recognizing the unique context of teaching, this paper aimed to take the basic TAM and add some layers they suspected were particularly important for educators.
Okay.
They wanted to dig deeper than just usefulness and ease for teachers.
Okay, so what did this study propose, adding to the model, to better understand teacher adoption specifically?
They introduced two key concepts: teacher belief profile and teacher efficacy.
Teacher belief profile.
Yeah.
That sounds like it gets at their core philosophy or approach to teaching.
Exactly. It's defined as the underlying mix of opinions, values, and expectations that guide a teacher's planning and behavior in the classroom. The study specifically looked at two contrasting profiles: constructivist teaching beliefs and traditional teaching beliefs.
So constructivist sounds more student-centered, like building on students' own ideas, using more informal assessment, being flexible.
That's the idea. It's about facilitating learning in a more responsive, less rigidly structured way. Traditional teaching beliefs, on the other hand, are more about following the textbook closely, focusing on lecture, and basing grades primarily on formal assessments like homework, quizzes, and tests.
Got it. And teacher efficacy.
Teacher efficacy is a teacher's belief in their own capability to influence student outcomes. It's their confidence in their effectiveness in the classroom.
General confidence.
Well, crucially, this study adapted the standard measure to focus specifically on efficacy while using computer technology.
Okay, that's a key distinction. It's not just general teaching confidence, but confidence that you could still be an effective teacher when you bring tech into the mix.
Exactly.
So the study hypothesized that these internal factors, your fundamental teaching philosophy and your confidence level with technology and teaching, might strongly influence how you perceive and use digital tools.
And the data they collected from surveying high school teachers bore this out in some pretty significant ways.
Let's get into those findings. What did they discover about how a teacher's beliefs link to their perceptions of tech?
Okay, so they found a statistically significant relationship. Teachers with a higher constructivist teaching belief profile were significantly more likely to perceive digital tools as having higher media richness.
Media richness. That's the concept about how well a communication channel can convey complex ideas and facilitate understanding, like how rich the interaction feels.
Precisely. It's whether the tech feels like a truly effective way to communicate, interact, and build shared understanding.
Okay.
Interestingly, the study found no significant link between traditional teaching beliefs and perceived media richness.
Huh.
So if you're more student-centered in your approach, you're more likely to see digital tools as powerful communication channels.
Wow. That's a significant link right there. It's not just about the tech, it's how your core beliefs shape your view of it. What about beliefs and that confidence factor, efficacy?
The study also found that teachers with a higher constructivist teaching belief profile reported significantly higher teacher efficacy, specifically when using digital media. Again, no significant link for traditional beliefs. So leaning towards that constructivist approach seems tied to feeling more confident teaching with tech.
Okay, this is starting to paint a clear picture. If you're more constructivist, you're more likely to see tech as a rich medium and feel more confident using it. Did that confidence, that efficacy, then link back to the core TAM factors, like usefulness and ease?
Absolutely, strongly so. Higher teacher efficacy using digital tools was positively and significantly related to both higher perceived usefulness and higher perceived ease of use of those tools.
Right.
And the study also confirmed the well-established link that perceived ease of use positively influences perceived usefulness. That came through too.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. If you feel confident you can handle the tech while teaching, you're much more likely to believe it's useful and easy to integrate into your lessons. It probably reduces the mental load, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. What about how much they actually use the tech and how they use it?
Good question.
The study introduced use richness, which isn't just if you use the tech, but how deeply and with how many different features you employ it.
So not just logging in, but really using its capabilities.
Exactly. And they found a significant positive relationship here, too. A higher constructivist teaching belief profile was positively related to higher use richness of digital tools.
Okay.
And critically, higher teacher efficacy using digital tools was also positively related to higher use richness.
So your fundamental approach to teaching, your beliefs, and your confidence with technology aren't just linked to how you see the tech, its richness, usefulness, ease, but they're also linked to how fully and variedly you integrate it into your teaching practice. That's a powerful connection.
It really is. It elevates these internal human factors, beliefs, and efficacy to being just as important, if not maybe more important, than just designing useful and easy technology when it comes to explaining why teachers adopt digital tools.
Wow. So the big takeaway from these findings is clear. It's not simply about building a useful, easy app.
Yeah.
A teacher's underlying educational philosophy, their confidence level using tech while teaching, are deeply connected to how they perceive digital tools and how deeply they integrate them into their classroom.
It puts the teacher themselves, their mindset and beliefs right at the center of the equation.
Fascinating. Now, every study has its limits, right? We have to be careful. What were some of the nuances or things we should keep in mind from this research?
For sure. This study had a relatively small sample size, only 57 high school teachers, and it wasn't a random sample, which can affect how generalizable the results are, you know?
Right. Can't necessarily apply it everywhere.
Exactly. Also, the survey asked about digital media technologies very broadly rather than focusing on one specific tool, like a particular app or platform. That might have influenced responses, made it a bit vague, maybe.
True, different tools could prompt different feelings.
And since it was a survey, it captured teachers' perceptions and self-reported efficacy, not objective data on how they actually use tech in the classroom.
That's a good point. TAM is about perception, but actual use can be tricky to measure directly without, say, classroom observation. Did the study capture any of the teachers' own voices or experiences beyond the survey responses?
Yes, they included an optional, open-ended question asking why teachers who weren't using much tech felt that was the case.
Oh.
And their responses added a crucial layer of real-world context.
Oh, interesting.
Many cited very practical barriers that sometimes get overlooked in the focus on attitudes.
Like what? What kind of barriers?
Things like a genuine lack of resources. Teachers mentioned school districts blocking websites they wanted to use, like YouTube or Facebook, for educational purposes.
Oh, really? Even for education?
Yeah, or simply not having enough working computers available for students, just basic access issues.
That's interesting because it can feel like we assume schools are universally well-equipped now, but those real-world infrastructure issues are clearly still significant barriers for some.
Absolutely. It highlights that while beliefs and confidence are critical internal factors, these external facilitating conditions like access, restrictive policies, and available equipment are still very relevant roadblocks, at least for the U.S. teachers in this study.
Right.
Some teachers also felt the technology simply wasn't necessary for their teaching goals, or importantly, they wanted to use it but weren't sure how to integrate it effectively into their lessons in a meaningful way. That training and pedagogical support piece.
So it's a complex interplay, isn't it? It's the internal wiring, your beliefs and confidence, interacting with the external environment,
Hmm.
the resources, the training, the policies.
Precisely. You need both the willingness and the means, really.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive and leaves us with a question to really chew on. We've seen that a teacher's fundamental educational philosophy and their confidence using tech while teaching are deeply tied to how they perceive and use digital tools.
Hmm.
Alongside these persistent, real-world challenges like resources and training, given all that, how can schools and professional development programs be redesigned? Not just to make the tools available, but to truly address these deeper issues. Building teacher confidence, aligning tech integration with diverse teaching philosophies, and providing the necessary practical support
Yeah.
so that teachers can genuinely be empowered to use digital tools effectively in their classrooms.
That feels like the essential next step, doesn't it? Thinking about not just the tech, but the human in front of the classroom, the whole ecosystem.